Coming up on the Unpack Show.
It's the pain, Johannes. It's painful. Failing is painful. And sometimes we focus so much on the pain that we forget that this is an event. So remember, failure is not who you are. You are not a failure. Failure is an event. You failed the subject. Your business failed. Your marriage failed. Your relationship failed. But you did not fail. You are not a failure. So one of the key things that most of us are not able to do, we are not able to separate the event from who we are.
Hey friends, thank you for joining me for yet another amazing episode of the Unpack Show podcast. And above all, I want to thank you for always choosing us to inspire you with different life-changing stories. If you are new to this podcast, be sure to subscribe so you can be notified when we release a new podcast. We live in a time where people give up the moment they get hit with challenges. And part of the reason is because people think that failure is final. And that's why we end up making decisions that destroy our life the moment we experience failure. But even if so, there are people who have risen above failure. And today I'm having one of my favorite guests, Mantsha Pheeha. Mantsha is a senior pastor of the Church of Jesus Christ in Midrand, a John Maxwell certified coach, a trainer, and a speaker. She's also the author of Money 101, Level Up, How to Realize Your Personal Vision, Failure It's Not Final, Single and Mingle. But be sure that these are not only her books. You can check her out to get more of her books. Mantsha also holds a chemical engineering degree from the University of Wits. Mantsha, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and hello to your listeners as well.
Well, we are glad to have you on the podcast today. Yesterday, I was on your Facebook page and I came across this quote, and it looks like it's a quote that you constantly use. And that quote says, "As human beings, we have defined our lives by the standard that celebrates quick success." And you further said I want to help people to let go of bitterness and unrealistic expectation about what it takes to make their dreams come true. Unrealistic expectations, it's what I'm interested in, because as we go about building our lives, as we go about making our dreams come true, we do have expectations, but I think many of us don't know about whether some of our expectations are real or some of our expectations are unrealistic. Tell me more about that.
Thank you very much for your question. I think the most important thing is if you just think about how you dream about your future or how you dream about what you want to achieve, you never factor in obstacles. You never factor in the fact that some of the things won't work out. Every time when you are thinking about your dream, you are thinking about where you want to go, you're thinking about what you want to achieve. Everything that you see is just green robot, or green traffic light. And you don't imagine that there will be obstacles. You don't imagine that there will be detours, places where things that you thought were going to work out do not work out. So what's important then for us, especially when we talk to other people who maybe are younger than us or are coming up, or people who haven't yet experienced certain things, is to say, yes, it's wonderful to dream about an ideal state that does not have mistakes, that does not have challenges. But what's even more important is that when you execute, when you are walking through your journey, when you do meet those obstacles and when you do meet those challenges, you deal with them. It doesn't mean that's the end of your dream or that's the end of the road for you.
So according to how I hear you, it looks like as we go about achieving our goals, achieving our dreams, it's like we have to expect some sort of the obstacles along the way.
Expect them and prepare for them. So the fact that they are there should not change your dreams, should not change where you are going.
But what's interesting is that I have found so many people that the moment we get hit with challenges, that we think that it's final, and that's where we end up making decisions that destroys our lives, as I said on the introduction. And for you, what was happening in your life by the time you realized that failure is not final?
So my story is that I went to Wits and I did chemical engineering at Wits. And when I arrived at Wits, I had been a top student at high school, and I had all A's. I had been top student in the province. I was one of those students that was interviewed on all the radio stations, all the TV stations, and people were asking me, how did I do it? And my father had slaughtered a sheep for me, and there was a party in the entire township, and everyone in my home, my relatives in the village knew about my success. Then I go to Wits. First year I did a bridging course, it wasn't that bad. Second year I passed, but from third year onwards, the course was really difficult for me. I just could not pass. A lot of people ask me why. I think it's a lot of factors. One, I think my personality was just not suited for engineering. But two, I think because I was not used to failure, the more I failed, the more disappointed I got, and the more difficult the course became. The more I failed, the more discouraged I became, then the less commitment I had to the course. So it was some kind of a vicious cycle where the more I failed, the more I failed, the more I failed, the more I failed. Then during that period, because I had always been a top student, I was not used to handling failure. Then during that period, I was very frustrated because I didn't know what to do with this Mantsha who is not doing well, with this Mantsha who is not number one, with this Mantsha who is not getting all A's. And throughout that period of trying to get a degree at Wits, I had to learn to handle failure. Because if I hadn't learned to handle failure, number one, I would never have gotten my degree. But number two, I would never have been able to overcome those feelings of inadequacy and of not being good enough so that I can continue and go on and be an engineer, as a professional. So I was forced to learn that failure is not the end because of my circumstances at Wits.
So I hear you saying that as you failed over and over, you started to feel discouraged because of failure. It wasn't something that you were used to. So in that time, what is it that brought hope that you can still do it, that keep moving even if you get hit with failure?
I know that people talk about church and talk about Christ and talk about the Lord as if it's something that is only relevant for your spiritual life. But one of the things that I can tell you is that the one thing that kept me going was my relationship with God, was the fact that I was in a church. And one of the most powerful things that happen at church for you is that when you are going through a hard time, the preaching, the songs will tell you things like, even though you're going through challenges, God sees you. You are not alone. God loves you. Even though you are going through the valley of the shadow of death, you will not fear any evil. You will come out of this situation. So, as much as those verses were not meant for someone who was failing academically, for me, those were the verses that carried me. Those were the verses that showed me that, Mantsha, I know it's difficult now. When you are looking, you don't see a light at the end of the tunnel, but remember, God sees you. God knows where you are going. Your life is supposed to work out. Your life is going to work out. So I don't want to lie to you. The fact that I was a Christian at the time, and the fact that I was in a Christian fellowship, I was surrounded by other students who were also Christians. We encouraged one another. And the thing with Wits at that time, I don't know if it's like that even now. Most of us were failing. Most of us were really struggling. So as much as I was failing, I was not alone. I was with other students who were failing. And, different people then ended up taking different journeys. Some people left and went to technical because we were at university at the time. Some people changed their careers completely and went to study something else. Others actually just let go of their studies and ended up without degrees. Maybe they got them later, others never got them at all. So it's very important to realize that as much as in my case, I ended up getting the degree, there are a lot of people who had to change their path completely. But for many of them, they were still successful. And I think that's something that is very important to understand, to say it's not everyone who will persevere and get what they originally came for. Other people will come in thinking they're going to be chemical engineers, like some of my friends, but today they are executives. They completed BCom degrees. They completed a mathematics degree, honors mathematics degrees. And these are examples of real people that are now still my friends. So it's very important that in dealing with failure, it doesn't mean you will get what you originally came for. But the most important thing is, don't live with nothing, live with something.
And in that period of time, as you say, that there are a lot of people that as they got hit with failure, they changed the other colleges, they went to other universities. Some of them changed the course. But for you, is this when you set yourself down in that period of going through a moment of failure, did you ever realize that you need to change? Or were you motivated, or what actually motivated you to stay in that path of completing the course of engineering?
To tell you the truth, I tried to change. And when I tried to change, I did not try to change because I didn't want to do engineering anymore. I tried to change because I just felt like I'm not able to pass this thing. When you are just at a point where you are trying your best, but it's just not working out. So out of frustration, I actually tried to change. But for some reason, even when I was trying to change, it was just not working out. But the one thing that I had told myself, even as a very young person, is that I came to Wits to get a degree. So I'm not leaving Wits without a degree. So as difficult as my journey was, I was very resolute. I was very clear that the type of lifestyle that I want as an adult requires a degree. So I'm not going to go through life without a degree. Even if it means it will take me as long as it did for me to get the degree, I will push on. So somehow I just had that resolve that says if it means I have to go back another year and repeat, I will go back another year and repeat. If it means I have to go and find, because one of the things that happens when you fail a lot is that you no longer have money to pay for the degree. So I had to at some point I had a tuck shop. I was tutoring at Soweto. I was tutoring at Wits. I had to go back to my bursary and ask them over and over. I mean, I was going to their offices every day asking them to pay for me one last year. So it's very important to realize that this journey is not just persevering in class so that you can pass, but there's another parallel journey which talks about getting funding. My parents were not paying for me, so it was not even an option. And as I was failing and going through this whole period, I had to sit down with my parents and explain to them why I failed again and explain to them what I'm going to do next. So there are a lot of things that you are juggling, but the one thing that I was resolute about was I will leave it with a degree, and that kept me going.
It's something interesting. Reason being, most of the people, when they get hit with failure, when their studies are no longer covered, they start to give up. And what encouraged you to start a tuck shop, to do tutoring so that you can be able to sponsor your studies?
So, I mean, I believe that we all know the situations in our families. Yeah. So I knew the situation in my family. So my parents, they had me. 4 years later, they had my sister. 4 years later, they had my brother. So which means they calculated, okay, when this one finishes university, the next one goes. When this one finishes university, the next one goes. What they didn't calculate is that I'm going to take a very long time. So while I was at varsity, my sister had to come to university. And my parents, I don't know how it happens in other families. When my parents brought my sister was going to Wits Tech to study electrical engineering. They gave her money for the bus and sent her to me. So I had to pay for my sister's registration. She had to get some of this equipment for electrical engineering. I had to buy them. And I remember on top of that, she was walking because she stayed with me at Wits. And she was walking to Doornfontein. So she stayed with me in Braamfontein and she was walking to Doornfontein. And she said she doesn't have the type of shoes where she can walk for such a long distance. So I even had to buy her shoes. Remember, I'm a student at that time. The reason why I'm a student is because I have been failing. If I had not been failing, by the time my sister came to university, I would have been working and I would be able to afford to pay for those things for her. So I say this to demonstrate to you that sometimes in your family, your parents also plan with you. They know, this one will be finished, will be an engineer, and will take care of this one. So I was very clear that number one, I will never be able to ask my parents for money to go to school. So now that I lost my bursary because I was failing, I had to think, how do I fund my life? How do I make sure that my fees are paid for? How do I make sure that my rest is paid for and I can eat at school? And now that I had a younger sister, my younger sister can also eat at school. So when there was an opportunity to be part of the tuck shop, and they said people must tender. I mean, back then we didn't even know what tenders were. They said people must tender to come and run the tuck shop. Two friends and I, we applied and we tendered to run the tuck shop because I understood that every week my sister and I will need money. And the reason why I tutored, it's also because when you fail as well, what happens is you are no longer doing the full curriculum. You are only doing the subjects that you are repeating. What did that mean? It meant that I had additional time compared to the other students. Now I don't have a bursary, but I don't have time. So since now I have more time, how can I use my time to make money? And that's how I ended up tutoring at maths and science at Soweto. So it's very important for us not to think only about who will pay for my fees, who will pay for my registration. My aunts don't want to help me, my uncles, my parents can't help me. We are also resourceful people. So start to ask yourself, what can I do where I am to fund my dream? Don't think another person has the responsibility to fund your dream. Even as a young person, ask yourself, how can I fund my dream? And because God is faithful, you will get ideas on how to fund your dream.
Yeah.
And the simple thing is, look at you and the podcast. You could have waited for funding, you could have waited for sponsorship, but you actually decided this is my dream. And you asked yourself, how can I start now? How can I fund my dream with my own time, with my own airtime, with my own data? You decided to fund it yourself.
And that's
how we must approach our dreams as young people.
And I love how courageous you were to be able to step out of your comfort zone and do something so that you can sponsor for your career and to also take care of your sister. And what I want to know is that in that period of time of experiencing failure, how did you cope in life?
I don't want to, now that I'm talking about it in the past tense, it sounds like I had it figured out. Because I'm speaking about something that I've already experienced, it has ended, I have the degree now, and my life is going well. But the one thing that I have to tell you, Johannes, it was very difficult. I'm the type of person who cries a lot. So when things are not working out and I'm frustrated, I cry a lot. So the one thing that I really have to be honest about is that during that time, it was a painful time. I was crying a lot, especially when results came. I remember the 1 year, I received my results. I failed again. I remember I was turning 21 that year, and I was walking with two of my friends. And as we were walking, I just got overwhelmed by sadness. And we were walking somewhere in Bellevue, and I sat down by the side of the road with cars passing. I just sat down on the pavement, and I started crying in the middle of the day. And my two friends, fortunately they knew God and they could sing very well. And they didn't say anything. They just stood next to me and they started singing the song that says, "People need the Lord. People need the Lord." And they started singing, saying, "Mantsha needs the Lord. Mantsha needs the Lord." And I ended up laughing because it was so funny. Here is this girl sitting down crying. Here are these two people singing for her. And people were just passing and they couldn't understand what was going on. I say this to say, especially to the person who is going through failure now, there's nothing wrong with you if you are frustrated, if you are depressed, if you are crying. That is part of the process. What is important, when you are done crying, when you are done feeling sorry for yourself, when you are done refusing to wake up from your bed, you need to stand up and face your life head on and not allow the failure to be the end of you. I had to stand up and go back to vets and apply again. I had to stand up and find money to register. I had to stand up and go to fees office and negotiate and say, no, I know I haven't been able to pay for my fees. This is how I'm going to pay for them next year. If I had sat down and done nothing, even today I wouldn't be having a degree. So it's difficult. What's important is after you have gone through the painful emotions, get up and do something for your life.
And after you realize that failure is not final, how did that change your life?
So the most important thing is one. Remember at the beginning I said when I started failing, I didn't know how to deal with failure. So it was a very strange thing. I didn't know what to do with it. But now I know how to deal with failure. My mother used to say, in Sepedi, which means something that can't talk will never defeat you. And that's the attitude that I have towards life. About 3 years ago, my sister and I wanted to buy some property, and the bank was not giving us money. And we, no matter where we went, we couldn't get money. But the one thing that I was sure about, we were going to buy that property. So we got projects, we applied for loans because we were not getting a home loan. But to cut a long story short, at the end of the month, we bought that property cash. And the reason why we managed to buy it is because in my mind, When I know that we are going to do something, we are going to do it. A house that does not speak, finance that does not speak will never defeat us. So that's the approach that I have towards work. Even now in my business, I have the very same approach. I sell books, and people are like, "No, selling books is difficult. You'll only sell so many books." I'm like, "Okay, I hear what you are saying, but books don't talk. Selling does not talk. I'm the one that talks. So something that does not talk will never defeat me." I mean, I have so many stories. I was fired at work. It will be a story for another day. And after being fired at work, I asked myself, what am I going to do with my life? And that's when I decided to focus completely on my speaking, my books, and my business. So I have had health challenges, relationship challenges. When we talk about failure, people think it's only about careers, but here you are in this relationship, you think you're going to get married. This thing falls flat on its face. It doesn't work out. People know about it. And you are sitting there. Not only are you depressed that your lover is gone, but you're also embarrassed that everyone knew that you are getting married.
Yeah,
So what
I know
happened
that
now?
pain.
So
Yeah.
we fail in different areas of life, but the one thing that I know, something that does not speak, the only thing that I cannot force is a person, because the person speaks, they reason, and they decide what they want to do. But when it comes to projects, when it comes to my dreams, my goals, the things that I want to achieve in this life, I have this idea in my mind that failure is just an obstacle. Failure is just a pause on the way, but it doesn't have to tell me where I'm going to end up.
And speaking of selling books and the challenges you had where people said you're going to sell books, talking a lot of things about that, discouraging you. And I once said on your interview with Linda on Basadi Moshomong, you said that you needed to start to develop a discipline of treating selling books more like a business. So there are a lot of people, more especially in townships, in rural communities, who are selling things. It can be even things other than books, but what I found in most of the people, they lack the discipline to treat what they are selling more like a business. So for you, in that journey, in that process of selling books, how did you transition that to say, you know what, this is not only about selling books, but I'm gonna treat this as a business? Because you fed up by saying that you were not working, so the money you had from books, you had to also take care of reinvesting it in the business of selling books and also taking care of your own personal needs. How did you jiggle that?
So I'm a reader. I read a lot. So that's one thing that I spend my time doing. And every time when I was reading about people who have succeeded, not only in business, but who have generally just succeeded in life, I realized that they take themselves seriously. They take their dreams seriously. So you and I can have a dream, the same dream, and you and I can have the same capabilities to make that dream possible, to make that dream come to life. But if you take yourself seriously and I don't take myself seriously, you will be successful and I won't. You will do well and I won't do well. So one of the things that I realized when it comes to my writing, to how I sell books, I just realized that when I take myself seriously, without asking other people to take my business seriously, they see how serious I am and they start taking me seriously. I'll just give you a simple example. So I will go somewhere, I will speak. After speaking, we've set up a table, the books are there. And then somebody gets there and then they say, oh no, I want to buy the books, but I don't have cash. I only have my card. And as soon as they say that, I tell them, no, you can swipe here. They get so surprised. You can swipe. Oh my God. And I said, no, this is a business. And they laugh. And even when a person did not want to buy a book or they were not serious, they just support you because they see how serious you are about what you are doing. And sometimes that's what we fail. You don't even have to have the resources yet to show how serious you are about what you are doing. Be serious even when you are working from the boot of your car or you are working from the side of the road. Take yourself seriously. If you are selling vegetables, wash your vegetables. If you are selling them in a hot environment, get a bucket of water and occasionally during the day, I don't know how to say, sprinkle. I wanted to say sprinkle them with water so that when people look at them, they don't look old. Why? Because you take your business seriously. If you are selling to people, be clean, make sure that you put an extra layer of roll on, because if you're going to be standing up talking to people all the time, you sweat, then after some time you have body odor. Little things like that. Take your business seriously. Don't say, when my business is bigger, I will take it it seriously. When you take it seriously when it is small, it will grow. I love your professionalism on the podcast. I have to say that. How you send me the questions up front. How you check me just before time to make sure that everything is going to go well. All those things they say to me, Johannes is serious. All those things they say to me, watch this guy. 10 years later, we'll be saying a different story. I'll be saying 10 years ago I was on this podcast. Because I see how you are taking your craft seriously. One of the quotes that I like, it says, when excellence is on the stage, everyone pays attention. So you are excellent when you are small. You are excellent when no one knows you. But that excellence is the one that is going to put you on a higher stage. One day people will ask you, how did you do it? You may not know how exactly, but when you sit back, you realize, it's just a history of excellence. It's just a legacy of excellence, consistently being excellent, that has brought me to this place.
Yeah, and from your experience in learning about failure, what is it that clouds people from moving on beyond failure?
It's the pain, Johannes. It's painful. Failing is painful. And sometimes we focus so much on the pain that we forget that this is an event. So remember, failure is not who you are. You are not a failure. Failure is an event. You failed the subject. Your business failed. Your marriage failed. Your relationship failed. But you did not fail. You are not a failure. So one of the key things that most of us are not able to do, we are not able to separate the event from who we are. We think the failure is us. We think we are the failure. So it's very important for you to be able to separate the event from who you are. Then the second thing, now that you've separated the event from who you are, is for you to realize that the pain is fine. There's nothing wrong with the pain, but don't dwell on the pain. Don't allow the pain to define who you are. Don't allow yourself to be swallowed by the pain. I don't know if you've ever seen this meme that shows depression, and it will show a couch, a sofa, and the person will be sucked into the sofa, and it shows that that's what depression does. Depression will suck you into a deep hole. So you must not allow yourself to go into that deep hole. Yes, feel the pain, but get over it quickly. And that's what we need to learn. And unfortunately, one of the things that makes us to be stuck in failure is the people that are around us. So if your family is always telling us, no, we knew that you won't succeed. We knew that you thought you were better. So if you are surrounded by people who are always negative about your failure, it's also very difficult to move on. Who mock you, who make fun of you, who show you that, look at boss mama, they are doing well. I can't believe that you just took all that money, you went to vets and you wasted our money and our time. If you're surrounded by people like that, you need to remove yourself from them and try and find a group of people that will support you and encourage you. Otherwise, failing in a toxic environment is very difficult. Remove yourself if you can. For some people, they can't remove themselves because it's your home and you have nowhere else to go. So find a way to mentally remove yourself from that place, whether it's through books, through podcasts like these, through the type of messaging that is going to encourage you and not discourage you.
And I love what you're saying when you say that failure is just an obstacle. It's just a moment. It's not you. It is in my experience back then where I used to attach myself to failure, and it is until when I came across this poem by Rudyard Kipling. I don't know if you know this song that says "If" by Rudyard Kipling, and there's a line in the poem where Rudyard says that if you can come across failure and success and treat those two impastures just the same, you will be a man. And my understanding from what Rudyard said is that sometimes we attach ourselves to the moments, and that's why we end up being sucked by situations. And what I've realized when you say that sometimes you get hit with failure and you live in an environment that actually embraces that failure, that failure end up sucking you. And it happens with most of us that you come from a family whereby when you get hit with failure, it's tough for you to rise above it. And I remember I released a short video where I mentioned the very same thing that you mentioned, that the reason why most of us as young people, we are not able to succeed, we are not able to excel, we are not able to improve, is that immediately when we come across failure, our family tells us how they told us that we will never succeed,
Yeah.
and it becomes difficult for one to be able to rise above failure. And my question is, so many people are going through different life experiences. Someone may say, I haven't went through your experience of having to fail in university, but I'm going through a certain experience of failure. So how can people cope when faced with failure?
For me, the biggest thing is have a relationship with God. Most of us, especially young people, we think our relationship with God is for our mothers, our relationship with God is boring. But do you know that when you are faced with yourself and the challenges of your life, what you need is a higher power. What you need is God who sees the beginning from the end. So the most important thing that I will say to people who are going through failure is just find a way to reconcile with God. Find a way to build your relationship with God again. And then as you do that, you will start to have the hope. Because when you are failing, the number one thing that you need is hope. Because the situation where you are now is bad. And sometimes you can't change it immediately. Sometimes you can't, there's nothing that you can do about it. I'll give you an example and say, maybe you've been in a marriage and the marriage that you are in has failed and the person is leaving. There's nothing you can do. And no matter how much you are trying to say, no, please stay, let's fix things, the person is going. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't force them to stay. So you have to face the situation of your failed marriage. Or maybe, maybe for much older people, if you are in a situation where your child is on drugs and your child, you look at your child, you can't recognize them, or your brother is on drugs, your sister is on drugs, and you just feel like there's nothing I can do. Certain failures, they are so big that they can actually break your heart. In that case, what you need is hope, because when you look at the situation, you can't see how the situation is going to change. But when you have hope says to you, tomorrow will be better. Hope says to you, I don't know how, but the situation will change. So sometimes it's like in our country now. Some of us, maybe if you are in the part of the country where the electricity situation is very bad, now there's even something called water shedding. Some people don't have water. And you are sitting there, but if you have hope, you know that tomorrow will be better than today. The situation won't always be like that. So the biggest thing that we need when we are going through failure is hope that tomorrow will be better. Is hope that the pain that I'm feeling today, I won't feel it tomorrow. Is hope that the difficulty that I'm going through today won't be there tomorrow. That's what we need. Human beings live on hope. Hope says don't kill yourself when things are tough. Hope says don't give up even though you don't know how tomorrow is going to work out. So for me, really, the most important thing is find a place in your life where hope is restored, where hope is renewed, where you are given a high dosage of hope. Because I don't know how long the situation is going to be. Let's give an example with sickness. That some people are dealing with sickness. Maybe you are dealing with mental illness. And even when you try to go back to school, when you are under too much pressure, you become anxious. And when you are too anxious, you can't concentrate. And that's why you are failing. You are not failing because the course is difficult. You are failing because of this mental illness that you have. So in your case, you can't say, how will I ever finish a degree when I'm faced with something like this? How will I ever have a normal life? How will I ever get married and have children if my anxiety levels are so high that I can continue with my life? In that case, what you need is hope. And then when you have hope, that's when you start to think, okay, what can I do differently? Do I need to go and find help? Do I need a coach? Do I need a doctor? What do I need? But the most important thing that you and I need when we are going through failure is hope.
And speaking of hope and speaking about the importance of inviting God in your life, so I want to ask this because I know that you are a pastor. So I want to ask this from a pastor perspective or from a pastor point of view. For somebody who has lost hope in God, somebody who has lost hope in life for their own reasons, how can you drive that person back to believing in God? Because I feel like that is something that is very important. Mainly because, I speak this as a young person and from a point whereby I see a lot of young people lose hope in life for certain reason, and now that hope, they've even lost it in God. They've lost hope in God that God can end up changing their lives. But for someone like this, how can you drive them back to believing in God again?
The most important thing when it comes to God, I would just say try Him. Try Him. So most of us, we've never given God a chance with our lives. You know, you can go to church, but not hand your life over to God. So the most important thing that I will say, especially to young people, surrender your life to God. Give Him your life. And the thing with God is, you know, when you read verses like trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. That's Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. Verse 6 will say, in all your ways acknowledge Him and He shall direct your path. In all your ways. So as young people, what do we often want to do? We want a part of our lives at church to be about God, but we don't want the rest, not all. We don't want to give it to God, whether it's your career, it's your dreams, it's your aspirations, it's your relationships, it's urata mang, haurati mang. You know, we don't want to give that area to God because we think we can handle it better. We think we know better how to handle our own selves than how God handles on our behalf. So especially if you are discouraged and you feel hopeless and depressed about your relationship with God, I just want to ask you a simple thing. Just take your life and hand it over to God and just watch how a life that is surrendered to God plays out. Because now you are not the one that is in charge. You are not the one that has the final say. You are allowing God to have a final say. So what you do is you just take your heart, you surrender it to God, and you ask Him to lead you. And you would be surprised. I mean, in 43 years of life, I can tell you that when God orders your steps, even the places that He leads you to, you are there, you are like, I don't even know how I got here. But because you've surrendered your life to God, He leads you there. He takes you there. And sometimes how God leads you, He will open a small, insignificant door. And if you are faithful and obedient enough to go through that door leads to another bigger door, etc., etc. But our problem is when you look at this small, insignificant door, most of us just feel like, this is nothing. I'm not going to go through it. But when you've surrendered your life to God, you are living on verses like, the steps of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord. So if God is leading me to this small door, let me go through it and trust God that it holds something bigger for me. What depresses us as young people, John, is the fact that we want to be in charge of our lives, but we don't know how to be in charge of our lives. And this is not just for young people, it's for me at my big age of 43 as well. That if I try to take charge of my life, I'll be very depressed because God is the one that knows what the future holds for me. If I take my life and give it to Him, He will lead me.
And you know, what you are saying, in hopotsa mantswe hona le mantswe a mang a spedi ho holeng ko sekolong kwa ne ba rata ho bolela mantswe a mang ba re thupa e kobe e sa le metsi he ka oma ya robeha. You know, one of the most fascinating thing that I found, and it's so sad, it's something that I found about life, and I remember I was talking to a group of young people talking about the importance of personal development. It was when I was in Polokwane engaging with young people and trying to introduce the Unpack Show podcast to them. And when I talked to them, I asked a specific question. The question was, do you invest in personal development? And you would be surprised that all of them said no. And I actually managed to talk to 12 people, and they said no. And when I asked why, they all said, because I don't see the necessity to invest in personal development. And yampusetsa back to mantswe a ke a bolelang kere ba re thupa e robe e kobeya e sa le metsi he ka oma ya robeya. And one thing that is so sad is that young people it's young people and elderly people as well, we don't see the importance of investing in personal development. We so don't see the importance of giving our lives to God. And it is until we find ourselves in those deepest and darkest challenges where we start to see the necessity to turn back to God, to turn back and start investing in personal development. And one thing that is so sad about that is that the moment we find ourselves in those deepest and darkest challenges, it will be difficult to believe in God, because of the thing that we will want in that moment is to instantly move out of those challenges. You know, like the thing that we'll want in that moment is to actually like say, God, move me out of these challenges as quickly as you can. That's why a lot of people, as they have grown older, according to my realization, a lot of people find it hard to believe in God. And as young people, I told a lot of young people that, you know what, it is time that you're still believing in God. It is time that you have to start investing in personal development so that you can be able to prevent yourself from giving up when you come across certain situations in life. And thank you for talking about the importance of giving your life to God, the importance of believing in God and having hope in order to rise above failure. So my last question as we end in this conversation is that from your entire life experience, what can you say to encourage people as they walk in different journeys?
It gets better. It gets better. You know, when you're going through a difficult time, it looks like the pain will never end. But one thing that I can tell you is that it gets better. My late mother used to say something that carried me, that still carries me today. She used to say, "This too shall pass." You know, no matter how painful a situation is, it will pass. You know, one of the most painful things that I've gone through as a person is losing my mother. I was very close to my mother. And even though she was sick, she had been sick before and recovered. But obviously, there was a time in 2010 when she was sick in December and she died. And I remember when I realized that she had died and I realized that she's not coming back, the pain that I felt, it's a pain that I cannot describe, you know. It's a pain that even today I don't have words to describe what that pain is like. And I never thought I could get over that. I never thought I can speak to you the way I'm speaking now and not feel teary and not feel pain and not feel like I want to cry. But look at me, 11 years later, it has passed. So this too shall pass. So it doesn't matter what you're going through. Your business has failed. Your relationship has failed. You lost a parent. You lost a child. People that you believed in betrayed you. It doesn't matter what you're going through. You are failing at school. At work, they are just about to fire you. Or you thought you were going to get a job and you are not getting a job no matter how much you are applying. I want to reassure you and assure you, you know, from the bottom of my heart, this too shall pass. Don't take your life. Don't give up. Don't do drugs. Don't give your life to alcohol. Don't go and prostitute yourself because you feel like there's no other way. This too shall pass. That is what I will say to someone who's going through a difficult time. Go through it, but have the hope that this too shall pass.
Wow, thank you for such a comforting words, caring words. And where can people find you?
So I'm on social media, on all social media platforms. If I'm not on a social media platform like TikTok, it means I don't know how it works. So my name is Mantsha Pheeha on social media. I'm also available on email, mantsapheeha@gmail.com, and also available on WhatsApp, 082-755-8219. And for ease of access on my website, it's mantsha.com, mantsha.com.